All right. Hello, hello, beautiful people. I am Jerome Armstrong at 18 Minute Fitness, and I am temporarily standing in for Jonathan until the big guy arrives. But I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy, hardworking, and productive days to join us for Carnivore Muscle Ramblings number 49, when we are answering your health and fitness questions. At least until Jonathan gets here. If anybody wants to ask me anything at all, just go ahead and tag it with a Q in the chat and dig deep in terms of questions. Feel free to try and embarrass me. But I have no shame, so good luck. Oh, there he is. Jonathan, how you doing? Shit, I just
How's it going?
I think I hit add you to the stream like right after you did, and it dropped you, so I apologize for that.
I didn't notice anything that happened.
Okay, on my end, it looked like you hopped in or joined the stage and then immediately left and then popped back on. So,
I see. Yeah, your hair looks crazy, doesn't it?
yeah, I've been using egg yolks for shampoo. Haven't used shampoo in years, and started using egg yolks, and it's getting long and it's getting a bit voluminous. So I don't quite know what to do with it right now.
Just leave it. Keep
Yeah,
it while you're young, Jerome.
Yeah, I think
When's long gone?
I'm knocking on the door of I'll be 40, in a year and a half or so. So I should probably enjoy hair while I have it.
Yeah, might as well. Yeah, you can still grow it out like Ultimate Warrior though.
That's kind of a goal. That's a goal at some point. I'll have to do that before I die.
Yeah,
you know me so well.
I think today, Jerome, we're just gonna have a general chat, and if anyone wants any questions answered, just chuck them in. Chuck them in the chat.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So, yeah, it's been a while since you and I have chatted. I apologize.
Been months. Jerem's been very, very busy.
Feels like it. It feels like it's been a really long time.
Yeah, poor Jerome.
Oh, no. There's no poor me.
Yeah. Well, I've, on a random, complete unrelated note, I've moved my bedroom around. So I'm actually in the middle of my room. Got lighting from over there, natural. Lighting over here. And I think it works better. I don't know.
Your green, yeah, the green screen lighting looks excellent. I tried doing the false background today, and it just looked terrible. So I opted to not have one.
Did you get the green screen, the black one that you were going to get?
Not yet. So I've ordered an inversion table, and maybe that'll be a good way to start this off, is just get your thoughts on one. And then, yeah, the problem is it's like $150 for a decent size black backdrop. And then I'll have to mess around with the lighting. But I'm actually impressed for you having multiple sources of natural lighting. The green screen looks really good.
Yep.
And for those who don't know, like trying to appropriately light a green screen, even if you just have nothing but artificial lighting, to get the lights dialed in right takes hours. And it's so frustrating. So well done, sir.
Yeah, the issue with me is my studio is in my bedroom. Basically, when I'm at Sophie's, it's in the bedroom there. She's dealing with lighting overhead. I've got 3 lights above me. One of them works, and it points the wrong direction. And it's also a really harsh light, so it tends to drown you out. So I never look that 3-dimensional. And I've got a panel here, which is about just over arm's length from me, and it helps light up that side of my face, so I don't look so like shadowy. Yeah, the green screen is actually further behind me now, so it's about maybe 2 feet behind me, or maybe 3 feet behind me. So I think there's no shadow from the chair going onto it, so it just makes it a bit clearer. But yeah, that's back-breaking work, but it's worked. So yeah.
And that's a play on words coming from you. Back-breaking.
Back-breaking, yeah, the irony. Yeah, I can see my books now, so I'm looking through them here. I've got like loads of diet, nutrition, biochemistry, biology, exercise science books. So I can now actually see them, so I can think about them and refer to them when I'm making videos and stuff. So that's quite useful.
Nice. Yeah, I should keep a bunch within arm's reach. All of mine are probably 20 feet away right when people walk in my studio entrance. I have all my literature there, so it looks like I'm smarter than I am.
Yeah, the more books you have, the more intelligent you are.
Yeah, I should go the gentleman that I'm thinking of with all of the certificates behind him on his wall. I should probably put like 50 or 60 certificates up back there.
Well, there's a few of them now, actually. I've come across a couple of them actually in our space, so interesting. Yeah. I don't have my certificates on me. I don't think.
Well,
They're actually in the cupboard over there, but they're in a box somewhere. I'm not getting them.
Well, it just makes me think of like all the people that every time their name is on something, it's always a bunch of letters before and after their name. And I tend to think those people just need a few hugs. And there's a time and a place. If you're doing like a formal publication or, putting your credentials on your website or something, absolutely. But if it's every single time your name appears anywhere, then yeah, it's okay. I just want to give them a hug and tell them that it's okay.
Yeah, people get a bit wrapped up in it. I think. I don't know. I think sometimes it's useful. It's like, oh, I actually know something about something. Oh, I trust this person.
Mhm.
But if you start like signing off your postcards to your family, I think that's
Oop, Jonathan,
yeah.
you are okay. Your audio was a bit pixelated. You're probably okay now.
Yeah. How's it now?
Okay, perfect.
All right. So so I've been doing some intermittent dry fasting for about nearly a week now. It's weird. So I did a dry fast and I got to about, I think it's like 24 hours on the first time I tried it, and that went well. But I suddenly started thinking about food. But I didn't have like any food urges. Like I didn't like think, oh, I want a packet of crisps or something. It was just I could eat something. My body was just hungry, and I was like, So I was like, well, I can either like go because this is my first time trying it. I thought, well, I can try it and just get to that point, then add extra next time. So at least I know I can hit the level up sort of thing. I feel like if I just carried on that, I'd have just binged on like chocolate bars. And I've got a box down here somewhere in my room from about 2 years ago for all the presents that someone got me years ago, and it's just like packets of sweets and chocolates and things, like things I don't really eat. And I've actually had it under my desk since I've been on YouTube the entire time.
Yeah.
So I've managed to avoid it until this point. But recently, I've been when I try things like that, I've been like thinking about it. Like, but I think they'll last. What else is new? Yeah, I'm still losing fat. I started at 112.7. I got down to about 105 now. So I feel leaner, but my face doesn't really feel leaner at all, which is frustrating. It's just the one place I seem to hold fat, no matter what my body does. My waist has easily lost about 2 inches. I'm certain of that.
So do your cheeks ever get fully sunken in, like when you're contest lean, or does that never really?
It does about 3 days out. And that's funny because it doesn't get like that because of any like protocol or diuretics or anything. I think just like the stress or the hormones kick in and all of a sudden my body just chucks out water. So the day of the show, I don't often actually drink much water. I just drink a bit here and there.
Sure.
But I'll just keep urinating more and more. I'm like, what's going on? Like it doesn't make sense to then put that much in.
Yeah.
Very bizarre, but I always compete pretty dry looking, so something seems to work.
See, a lot of people will hold that last little bit of fat on their lower abdomen or around their back. You hold yours right on your cheeks until your body says that's the last place we can pull it from. It's interesting. Like Dorian Yates, especially during his 6 Olympias, he, those black and white photos that he's famous for when he's in his posing trunks and his work boots. Those were taken like 3 or 4 weeks out from one of the Olympias. And he was a good like 20 to 25 pounds heavier in those photos than on the day of the contest. And apparently he had tried to maintain that weight and close to that conditioning, but I don't know if it was stress or something. He dropped a lot of water and a little bit of size. So I kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah. I feel very deflated right now. I don't feel like low energy. Like I don't feel as if I've been like I've been cutting now, for those of you that don't know, for just over about a month, so 31 days or something like that. And it's been effective. I've lost a lot of fat. My waist is small, but I'm now at the point where you don't really look much better. You just look like a flatter, smaller version of yourself. It's not until you get that last extra bit of fat off, so where you're below like 10%, really, that's when I start to look like a different human being. But at that point, it's like, do I sort of pull that lever and get to about 100 kilos and just diced out my mind? But and I may do it, might not. I don't know.
And I'm laughing.
I don't feel bad.
I'm laughing because I know that point too. Like normally when you start cutting, you're looking better and better. Like if you made a graph of how you look over time, you look better, and then you hit a point you look worse for a little bit, and then all of a sudden you like exponentially start looking better again. Yeah, that's a really weird time, and that can really mess with your head.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of. I've done it so many times now. Like, I don't know. I've been bulking cutting now for like um 13, 14 years.
Hmm.
I think I've done maybe one or two hard bulks, like, where you just eat everything, but I've not really pushed it that hard. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna probably try and stay leaner for the next part of the year. Maybe around December time, I'll try and mass up again.
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know, like when you get to certain muscular size, to get much bigger, you have to really try. You really have to force feed. I find, regardless of what diet you're on, it's a bit easier to force feed on a mixed diet because there's more food choices. But doing this with like, a brick of butter a day with a pot of heavy cream, with eggs, cheese, just trying to gain mass, all out mass is like hard work. So I'm going to probably try and do that within about an 8-week block, so December to the end of January. So that kind of matches the festive season, so I won't be starving over the Christmas holidays. Then I'll look at a few shows later in the year, if I feel like it. But right now, probably not. I feel like I'd have to cut back too much free food in order to get very lean. So for me, it's not a good option right now. Yeah.
Hmm.
Should we do Q&As?
Sure. Yeah, and to
Right.
touch on that, it's crazy sometimes too, especially if you're eating like red meat, salt, water, how sometimes just the introduction of a little bit of extra flavor or a different flavor or texture within the same meal can cause you to eat so much more. If you think of like just eating a regular baked potato with nothing on it, like one potato would fill you up pretty quick, but the second you put, chives and sour cream and bacon and cheese and all this other stuff on it, you could eat like 3 or 4 of those bad boys and think nothing of it. So
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the baked potato. Over here, that's a good one. Like if I was to say like maybe one or two things like I'd like like to never not be able to have like ever. It'd probably be I'm talking about like a meal, like a snack, like probably a cheese sandwich and a cheddar cheese baked potato with butter and crap, maybe
yeah.
some garlic or I don't know, whatever you have in it, chives.
Mhm. Yeah, it's whatever.
Oh yeah, you can tell them think about food because I don't often talk about food. Funny enough, it's not until someone asks me, I'm like, oh, I've been eating the same thing for God knows how long now. I don't know. It's like 5 things.
Mhm. And
Right?
yeah, and
Yeah,
sure, and the more contests you do too, like food is utility, like it's a means to an end. It doesn't quite have the same social implications or when you sit down for a meal, everyone's so focused on the food, and you and me are like, we've probably been through enough holidays with our Tupperwares full of chicken and broccoli and rice that you're almost happy to just get it out of the way so you can enjoy the time with your family.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I look forward to the cheese board most years, but it depends where I'm at Christmas because we won't always have a cheese board. Depends. Yeah, it really depends where I'm at.
Mm.
But Sophie's for Christmas, it's good. You always get it's a good mix of everything. So you get turkey. I think last year we had lamb and beef, maybe. We had like 2 or 3 meats, which is quite nice. I sometimes have like some cauliflower cheese. It's not the worst thing to have. If anything like festive that I don't mind having is like cauliflower cheese, mostly because it's got cheese in it. But it's a way to get a roast dinner with cheese on it in some meal. Yeah, I'll stop rambling. We'll do some stuff in here. So we've got. Oh, actually, Rick's first. So Rick gets 100 composition coins. Excellent. Speaking of, nice to see you. Hit the like button. That's it. Nice to see you, Ben. Thank you for joining tonight. It feels like ages since the last one. I think the last one I did mostly on my own, which I'm
Yeah,
surprised anyone tuned in for.
it's my daughter's had off of school recently. School picked up, and that was cool. And then she's been off, so I apologize for my absence.
Sorry. Yes, definitely the hair. It's definitely the hair.
It's getting long. It's a mop right now.
Yeah. All right. I'll find some questions. Here we go. So Matthew Ladderman asked, is a rear delt fly the best exercise for developing the posterior deltoids? Are chin-ups or pull-downs or machine pullovers and chest-supported lowers good enough to build them to a high standard? That's a good question. I think Jeremy and I probably have the same thoughts in this, so I'll let you go first and see what you have to say.
Sure. Is a rear delt fly the best exercise for developing the posterior delts? I'd say probably, yeah. To put that in the context of your second question, I tend to think over a long enough period of time, you probably don't have to train rear delts directly at all to hit your genetic potential for their development. They're going to be agonists in every single compound pulling movement, despite the angle. If there's some scapular retraction and depression of the shoulder slightly, like, they're going to be involved. Um, Whether or not someone needs or should train them directly is probably going to be more dependent on their genetics. For some people, direct rear delt training may constitute overtraining depending on the volume and frequency and intensity of their other movements. Some people may need to work them. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the average person that's been like training for like 4 years is in there pretty close to their genetic potential. Up to that point, they could probably just do a chest supported row, a bent over row of a barbell, maybe a wide grip cable row. That will probably give you like 90% of the results, I'd imagine. I just think you get to a point in your training career where you have to sort of focus your effort and intensity in a certain way. So, for example, me right now, I want to develop my mid back, so that rhomboid lower trap kind of area. To do that, I'm going to be doing a lot of chest supported rows because that's an exercise I can do. And with that being said, I'm not going to have a particularly wide flare to my elbows, so they're not going to be right out here or too wide because that will target too much of my rear delt. But I want to focus more on my mid trap area, so I'm kind of doing it a bit more neutral, kind of medium sort of thing. With that as well, I mean, if I want to start developing my rear delts more, then yeah, I'm going to add in maybe a rear delt fly or even a row, which is, I prefer actually doing it face down onto a bench where I'm like lying over it. You have to have it quite elevated on an incline. Then I just use the dumbbells or a barbell, in some cases like a short barbell, and just bring it up and just wait until my rear delt kind of like fires up at the top. And I just find that quite effective. The only issue with that movement is it's very contraction focused. So at the very peak contraction, you don't get much tension at the very bottom. So that's where you might use something like a rear delt fly on a machine or a cable where you can get more tension throughout the movement. Yeah, I'd say for most people, they just specify as by doing, a mid and a wide row, like mid back row sort of thing, or chest supported row of some kind. And that would be probably all you need. You just give you maybe an extra few percentage points of growth. Yeah, so for me, in that instance, today I did add in some rear delt machine flies, and I felt that was pretty good. I got a bit of mid trap as well, not deliberately, but as like an accessory kind of muscle group. So yeah, for me, it seems okay. I'd add it in, but it depends what you're trying to do and how hard you're training. I mean, if you're training 100%, you're doing like 6 sets, you can no longer move your heart rate. It's like 1,000 beats per minute. Then, yeah, maybe not spend an extra 5 minutes pissing around on some little machine. Just do what you need to do. So I think if you've looked at like the Exercise Specifics 101 book, I believe Matthew's purchased that one. I'm not sure, but it will say in there like the best movements, and the best movements are going to be the ones that allow you to like push something, pull something, and obviously squat down with some accessories. So I'll go through that list, look at your body, look in the mirror and say, I want to develop more of this, less of this, then specifies that way. So it might be that rather than doing, say, 2 sets of chest supported rows, you might do 1 chest supported row, then 1 rear delt fly if you really want to build up rear delts. So that's how I'd go about it. Long story short.
Yeah, I'm glad you took the opportunity to plug that book. I was about to. And for a little bit more detail for those who may be new to hearing this, Jonathan and I put out an ebook on his website, compositionconsultant.com. And you always correct me on the price, but for £3 I believe, we wrote an ebook that lists the best exercises for any single muscle group based on strength curves, resistance curves, and the physics of exercise, essentially.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, so I'm trying to think now. People have been buying that Drome. It's been good. People have been buying it. It's ticking over, so I'm glad about that. The next book to come out, I've been working on quite a bit the last week or so. I'd say, honestly, it's about 95% written. Now I'm just on the point now where I need to start adding in the photos for a few things. I need one of Jerome's photos or something as well. I think I need to get a testimony of someone, but then I'm pretty much done. I think just a case of putting it all together so it looks nice and presentable. But it'll be packaged the same kind of way as the last ones. But Jerome and I may have a discussion about the title and what goes on the front cover, I guess. But probably similar sort of theme. Now, we've got a question from Andy. What are your thoughts on the claim that the carnivore diet is deficient in vitamin C? My thoughts are that it's not deficient in vitamin C. What do you think, Jerome?
Yes. Otherwise, long-term carnivores would suffer major health consequences. And like we know, there's vitamin C in liver, and some people recommend it. But really, I think if you're eating, 2+ pounds of red meat a day or right around there, even less, you don't need a lot of vitamin C. I've had no issues. There's thousands of people doing the carnivore diet that haven't had any issues. And I tend to think that a lot of people that do have issues, that probably just have gingivitis and not scurvy.
Yeah, I think the amount of vitamin C we need in our blood at any given time is a couple of nanograms per deciliter, so it's next to nothing. It's really not a lot. I was looking at nutrition labels recently, actually, and I found things like, what was it? It was like salmon or mackerel or something that had a surprising amount of vitamin C in it. Not like loads, but like a couple of milligrams, like maybe 3 milligrams. I thought that's pretty good. I'm getting them stocked up on my antioxidants. Yeah, I think it is possible that people can run into issues with scurvy on a carnivore diet, but that's only an instance where they're putting the body through stresses where the vitamin C requirement would go up, but not dealing with it appropriately. So they're letting inflammation build up. Perhaps they're cooking their meat to death. Maybe I can see that being possible. It's not absolutely a possibility, but I think it's just extremely unlikely. Like, just and by default, most people aren't strict carnivore anyway. So vitamin C deficiency is not going to happen if you're having I don't know, a packet of nuts or something each week.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't, even maybe a chocolate bar might even have vitamin C. I don't know, but yeah, I don't think there's much to really add to that. I think it's kind of like wives' tales. What are your thoughts on supplementing boron for better bone health and more free testosterone? I've never done it. I know people that do it, but I've never met anyone that claims that or has found that it's been significantly different in terms of outcomes. So maybe, I don't know. I wouldn't use it personally. I wouldn't specifically go out to buy it to use it. Maybe I'm ignorant. Maybe I don't know anything. Maybe I should know better. So what do you think, Drew?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, a lot of the natural testosterone boosters that use boron as an active ingredient, it's a really slight dose. It's a very, very small dose of boron. And it's unfortunate the way the supplement industry is in the United States. The USDA has to prove, the FDA has to prove that your supplement is dangerous to take it off the market before you have to prove that it's safe to be put on the market. So as long as there's at least one study that can be conducted by the company selling the supplement to show that there's potential benefit to their supplement, they can say and sell almost anything they want. But really, I'm so hesitant to generally recommend supplements in the first place because people use them in completely the wrong context. We use them like crutches that we're leaning on when really it should be the little bit of icing on the allegorical cake. Diet's number one, and sleep and lifestyle and all the other 4 to 5 health hacks that Jonathan and Bart K talk about are far more important than most supplements most people take. Now, there's obviously situational uses for various things, depending on somebody's individual needs. Totally get it. But for most people, I tend to think most individuals probably don't need any supplements at all. And then if they're trying to optimize, then there might be a little wiggle room for a few things. But the best way to increase your testosterone is to get sun, lift weights, and eat meat.
Yeah, I think the same. I think any supplements I would recommend at all would be a vitamin or a mineral. So I know boron is a mineral, of course. It's just you don't hear about people being deficient in it. For the body to be running optimally, I kind of feel like our metabolic pathways would have changed a bit to sort of deal with less boron if it was so, essential in that sense.
Mm.
I've actually got the latest ebook up in front of me now. I'm looking at the supplement section. And I've got omega-3, curcumin, ginger, green tea, resveratrol, but I may get rid of that. I'm not sure yet. Vitamin D, probiotics, quercetin, bromelain, magnesium, collagen, berberine, N-acetylcysteine, B complex, astaxanthin as potentially useful supplements. But that being said, none of them are useful if you don't do the other things that Jerome's mentioned. So I think I've only met 2 people that maybe about 3 or 4 people that actually do that stuff. Like they stick to the diet properly. They don't get blue light after dark and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're ticking all those boxes, you can start to look at those things. And some of them are more relevant than others. I mean, having a healthy omega-3 to omega-6 profile is probably useful. Or some of the other ones. B vitamins in times of stress. Magnesium is essential for, 300 plus metabolic pathways. Vitamin D as well. So I think if you've had a blood test and your vitamin D is good, well, then you can start looking at this other stuff, I think. But vitamin D is probably the main one. And some amino acids like taurine as well.
Mm.
All right, next question. Unassailable has asked, why is it hard to progress in strength on the carnivore diet? Even if you're eating kilo upon kilo of meat, I cannot lift heavier every session. Ooh, this is a good one. Yeah, what do you think, Jerome? So he's not building, or he or she was not building strength.
Sure. The diet is certainly important. And it sounds like if you're eating a decent amount of meat, then the issue probably lies elsewhere. Any training program works as long as you train at a volume and frequency that your body can recover from. Now, as you get stronger, the magnitude of stress becomes bigger and bigger. So oftentimes, the more advanced you get, the stronger you get. In a lot of ways, you need to reduce volume and frequency quite a bit to continue making progress. So the first thing I would probably look at is the amount of volume that you're doing in a particular workout. Um, and I don't like the conventional definition, but I'm going to use it here. Look at how many sets you're doing and look at your numbers. Hopefully, you're writing everything down on a set by set basis. If you're able to lift the same weight on set number 1 that you can in terms of set number 10, your lack of progress is probably due to a lack of intensity. If you're doing, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sets a body part and your strength is dropping off rapidly every single set, you might be doing too much volume. And once you play with volume a little bit, then you can start manipulating the frequency of your workouts. But in general, don't overcomplicate it. Exercise is a physical stress that's deliberately imposed on the body so that you can reap the benefits of the compensatory actions, the increased size, strength, cardiovascular conditioning, body composition, flexibility. Because it's a physical stress, the dose and the recovery and the frequency need to be cautiously regulated. So sounds like your diet's probably okay. You're giving your body all the crude materials that it needs, but my initial suspicion is you're either putting too much work on it in terms of intensity or not enough. What do you think?
I'm going to speculate it's intensity. It could be that I'm not sure what the person's name is, but it could be that they think they're training hard, but they're not training that hard. Or they could be doing a lot in the gym and perceiving that as being hard. I used to do 40 sets in the gym for legs. None of those sets were good sets. The stimulus wasn't there. I was effectively just oxidizing fat and at the time carbohydrates. So it probably didn't build anything. I didn't tell my body you need to be bigger. It was just got used to that. I'd maximize sleep as well. I'd also be questioning why someone's eating so much meat, which is pretty profound. If he's like a 6'5" guy, 300 pounds, well, yeah, you're going to be eating kilos of meat. But I don't think many men specifically need to eat more than about a kilo of meat per day. And that's regardless if they lift or not, to be honest. I don't really see it happening. In most cases, like 99% of people. So, and everything Jerome said about recovery as well is important.
And then I don't want to speak for Jonathan, so I'll ask you in a bit. But at least in my experience, when I switched from a carbohydrate-based diet to ketogenic diets to eventually a carnivore diet, I had no reduction in performance in the gym. When I went from keto to carnivore, I actually felt like I got better pumps in the gym. And Jonathan, do you have any lack of performance in the gym when you switched to a carnivore diet?
Not really that noticeable, a little bit, but I mean, it was about 2 weeks. So it wasn't such an amount that I thought, oh God, so I'm going to lose all my gains. It's more like, oh, I've lost a bit, I feel a bit less energetic. But beyond 2 weeks, I was back to normal. So certainly possible. If we answer that question properly.
I think so. There's also a slight possibility, depending on how long you've been lifting and what your current programming is, you might, sadly, wherever you're at, just be at your potential. The human body can only get so strong, and it's inconvenient truth that Jonathan and I like to try and put in the back of our minds and forget about. But we're only able to build so much muscle mass, and we can only get so strong. Otherwise, people would be doing 3,000-pound bent over rows. So I hope you're not there, but that is a possibility too.
It could be a hormonal thing as well. Maybe I know people that just train as hard as they want, but they just don't get bigger or stronger. That's just it. And it's like year after year, you sit in the gym, you're like, oh, what's going on? But I don't know. I think there's enough to chew there. I mean, I'd probably recommend a consultation with Jerome and myself just to work out what is going on. You can carry on. you can come on to the consultation video link and share your stuff, like your training footage. Maybe it's your training, maybe it's your day, maybe you're sat in front of a computer 20 hours a day and you're not falling asleep at night. It's usually most cases where you're eating so much food but not getting strength. It's usually something wrong with what you're doing. Well, it has to be something wrong with what you're doing because your body's meant to adapt. But like Jerome said, it depends how close to your genetic potential that you are at. So interesting question. So Ben, thank you very much for the super chat. And you asked, as someone who's ketogenic, does a pre-workout pump non-stimulant supplement work better with stored glycogen and or water in the muscles? So he's talking about things with maybe glycerol, citrulline, taurine, agmatine,
probably creatine, beta alanine.
Creatine. Yeah. I guess he's saying, does the pump product work better if you're in a more fed state and you're hydrated? I'd say yeah, because if you don't have much, I guess, electrolytes in your body and your glycogen's not topped up, you more like to take water away from places that is probably more crucial for it to be. Is if you're not hydrated properly from like an overnight fast, then your training performance isn't going to be as good. So it kind of makes sense to me that you're better off training in a fed or more glycogen fulfilled state. It's tricky to work out how long before your workout you'd have to eat though, because for me, I can do it in an hour and I feel better, but some people, the digestive function isn't that great. It's not that fast. So they might need 3 or 4 hours for the food to hit them, if that makes sense. I know someone that has just a big meal at night and they train very early in the morning, like 6 in the morning, and that fuels them through it. So it's worth trying it out. I'd probably recommend for you, Ben, in your case, probably just to train in a fed state if possible. Ideally, maximize what's going in the body before and after. But that's just because I know your history. I know what you do. I know that you do, several meals a day. So it's and a few snacks. Sometimes it's not too bad. Do you think we missed anything there?
No, I don't think I have much to add to that. I think all other factors being equal, your performance would probably be a little bit better if you had a little bit more creatine and glycogen inside of your muscles. And you've pointed out many times that we never really run out of glycogen in our muscles. But we certainly know that you can top them off in a sense with certain dietary choices, the 1 to 3 hours before a workout.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, for that to be significant, a lot of other factors would have to, your training would have to be really dialed in. I tend to think the biggest factor that's going to make or break a good workout from a bad workout, it's all going to be up here. But if you've been working out for a while and you've got your diet dialed in and your training is hard and recovery is dialed in, could that make a difference? Yeah, I think it absolutely could.
That's a good question. Yeah, I think, Ben, you may have already seen it, but I'd recommend watching the 4 supplements to boost your performance on the carnivore diet video, or whatever it is. That's a nifty little video, and it does have all the same stuff I've probably already told you before, but I put like the amounts and things in it, so it might be useful. But yeah, oftentimes you can buy these things separately, and it probably saves you a bit as well. In the past, I've usually bought these powders separately, like taurine, citrulline, creatine, maybe. Then I've just put them in a bottle, weighed them out, then put some sugar-free squash in it, then put some water in it, and just drank that. Saves some money. But yes, very good. Question from Matthew again. So, how is Jeremy's bodybuilding competition prep going?
Sure. So it's still moving forward, and I don't want to tip my hat too much. But I have a terrible relationship with food. So I'm going to be doing a video on that soon. It's probably going to be in the next 1 to 2 videos that I put out, hopefully this week or next week at the latest. But I'm trying to repair that relationship I have with food as best as I can live with, while not being willing to compromise and still wanting to do this contest. So at least at the moment, I've been taking a little bit closer to a Dr. Chafee approach, having one meal. I've been putting it much later in the day. I found that getting to that point where, my body says, yeah, you've had enough. I don't really want any more. To get to that point, it feels like a lot of food. And usually I kind of sit with this like brick of food in my stomach. So I've been pushing that meal pretty close to bedtime so I can sleep through some of that discomfort and wake up, feeling kind of decent. But weight is hovering right around 230, kind of depends on the day. Some days I'm a little bit under, some days I'm right above, but it's still generally being about 3 pounds a week weight loss. So it's been pushing pretty good.
Yeah, I'm hovering around about that myself, about 233 roughly. It's been funny though, because the dry fasting kind of throws you off a bit, because you'll drop like 5-6 pounds and you'll put it back on and you're like, am I just more inflamed because I stressed my body out, or have I actually dropped some fat or gained some water, or what? It's so hard to work out when you're dry fasting. I thought it'd be easy, but for me, it seems to stress me out, makes me hold water. So
I was going to ask, do you feel less inflamed with some of the intermittent dry fasting that you've done? Like when I've dry fasted, I've just felt tired, and I've done 2 3-day dry fasts. And my joints felt great. Not that they ever really felt bad before, but the only thing is I just felt tired and a little run down, and I'd have a bit of a constant headache, but a little bit of movement, like a nice slow walk, always felt really hydrating to me. It felt like I had a couple of big glasses of water. So I was just curious on your experience.
yeah, I feel fine. I don't feel particularly thirsty. All it is a strange feeling, because as a bodybuilder, I'm used to eating in the past 6 meals a day, drinking a litre between each of those meals, some stupid amount. But now it's like I've got this extra time, although I'm like doing other things. It's like I'm just sat there, I'm like, I've got a bottle there. Is it? Oh, I better drink that. Or you see someone else drinking in front of you, think, oh, I better have a sip. Actually, it's like a social kind of thing. When you actually sit there and think about, I'm not thirsty right now, and I've not drunk since like 2 p.m. or something. So very weird. But I don't feel bad. I just feel like beyond a certain point, you start thinking about food too much. I think I'll have to just build into it slowly, because any sort of dietary change is going to be a bit stressful. It's not easy to go from eating every day to trying to not eat or drink for a whole day straight. I don't know, but I don't see a danger in it for myself. I feel quite good on it. I noticed when I did the 24 sort of hour one, I continued urinating. I didn't have particularly dark urine. My urine actually feels better since doing dry fasting. So that's an indication to me that my body's a bit more cleared up, but I don't know.
And if you keep water and electrolytes nearby, I mean, like I usually always have some within arm's reach, kind of wherever I am, but I think the dangers of dry fasting are a little over exaggerated if you have something within arm's reach. Like, listen to your body, you'll know if you need water. And then you can have it, and just don't dry fast and then rush a big meal. Most people will not do well on that, but just be smart.
I can see myself running into problems if I was to do this on OMAD, because you have to eat so much food and drink so much to catch up. Like you can't, as much as people say, oh, you could just have a sip. For me, you can't. I don't think my body will adapt that far, because my body weight, I've got a higher requirement for more fluid, I guess. But yeah, if I was to do OMAD, I'd be probably drinking, well, eating my food, then drinking for about an hour straight. I'd be a OMAD of like 2 hours long just to get all the food in, I think. So yeah, we'll get to the next question. So just so you guys know, super chats are prioritized. So Ben's kindly, very graciously donated £1.99. So that's the second super chat today. Appreciate that. So Jerome, this one's for you. How was your hormone biofeedback, i.e. libido?
Libido is great. I'm like gonna try and keep things appropriate. Yeah, I mean, I should get some blood work done, and it's something that since I've been heavier in the past and have had lost a bunch of weight, that I tend to get a full blood panel every 6 months or so, and I'm a little overdue for that. But I haven't really looked too closely at anything. Since being carnivore, or mostly carnivore, my blood pressure's been great, and that was always the biggest thing that I checked. But as I've talked about in previous videos, I am on TRT, so I take 150 milligrams of testosterone a week, and if I wasn't, and I suspect that that's probably helping me feel relatively good most of the time too. Generally, if you're pushing fat loss really, really hard for a long period of time, not so much, when you're a little heavier, but once you get sub 10% body fat, you really try and push that fat as low as possible. It does kind of wreak havoc on your hormones. And in a lot of ways, I think a lot of guys are probably better with some slight hormonal support than guys who are completely natural trying to get 3 4 5% body fat. But in general,
Yeah.
I mean, I no issues.
Yeah, I think the person that's doing a bodyweight competition, a male getting very, very lean, will have better long-term health by supplementing their hormonal profile, I think. I'm going to be a bit biased, and so is Jerome, but it just makes sense. Like, why put more stress on your body than it has to actually take yourself out of that position anyway? So
Yeah.
where your testosterone would be tanked after a long diet anyway, you might as well just been using testosterone the whole time. A sensible sort of reasonable, not super physiological dose, then go from there. I think it's less worry for the body.
Yeah, and with men, I
Yeah.
don't think it's as big of a deal, but especially women that'll do fitness, figure, and bodybuilding competitions. Like for a woman to get really, really lean for some of those contests, I really worry about how it would jack up a female's hormones. And I haven't worked with any clients that have taken to that point, so I can't speak from experience. But I would be really worried, and I don't think I would work with a female client who wanted to do bodybuilding. If it was figure or maybe fitness, possibly on kind of a local level, but that degree of leanness it's not healthy for anyone, but I think it's especially unhealthy for women.
Yeah, women are meant to hold more fat than men biologically anyway. So I don't know. I've seen some great success recently though on that point with women at my local gym in Bournemouth, and they're like, I think 2 of them are close to turning pro. Like they're right on the cusp of it. I think. I'm not an expert in bikini, so I don't really know how it all works. But I can look at physiques and know who's going to win something, but I don't know how it stands up to like other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's impressive stuff. It's just not great for the body. So I've not used quite a while now. How long has it been? I don't know. It's been quite a long time anyway since I've used any creatine. Feels like a long time. Right. So next, Zbigniew has asked the calorie deficit versus energy deficit, 2 different things, I presume. Any thoughts, gents? Kind of, but kind of not. So the calorie deficit doesn't really exist in the human body. So we don't deal with calories. It's not our currency. Our energy currency is ATP. That's usable energy. The calorie isn't relevant to the human body because it's about a measurement of the amount of energy within food within a closed thermodynamic system. Now, an energy deficit is a bit broader. So you could say energy deficit about anything pretty much. Like the ability or capacity to do work or function. And if you're not able to do that, that's an energy deficit in most cases. So does that make sense? So yeah, I'll be looking at it from like a mass deficit, because mass is what supplies the energy. But if you're saying, oh, I don't feel great today, okay, I'm deficient in energy. The energy is if you're energetic, that's an adjective. So I think we're talking about weird nomenclature here. I don't think it really makes a difference. But yeah, it's the thing is energy balance theory, which is a calorie deficit, versus mass in, mass out, which is the mass food mass deficit, I guess.
Mhm.
Do you have any thoughts?
When people talk about being in a calorie deficit, what they really mean is being in a mass deficit, because they're talking about, they say if you're in a calorie deficit, you'll lose weight. Okay, well, weight isn't measured in calories. Weight is measured in grams or pounds or newtons, or actually newtons, unit of force. Sorry. Um, but so it's a little bit weird to speak in um, a different division of science than the one that you actually intend. So we should, as professionals, try and be somewhat precise with our language. Um, so as much as people talk about, the law of conservation of energy, well, mass is conserved too. In all stoichiometric chemical equations, mass is conserved, period. We do not have a physiologic system to convert energy into mass or mass into energy. Um, so if somebody wants to lose weight, they want to lose mass, they should be measuring their food intake in terms of mass. It just makes sense. And to use calories as an approximation of mass is one step removed from that. And because it's one step removed from that, it can't possibly be as accurate in speaking in the precise terms.
It's so funny this topic came up because today I was at the gym and there's this lad I'm quite friendly with. He's one of the PTs there, and the owner's girlfriend, she's also a PT there. And talking about like diets and what their coaches get them to do and stuff like that. And the lady was like, "Oh, my coach gets me to follow this diet plan, and I've got macros as well. But I don't really see a point. I just stick to what the plan says." I'm like, good for you, good,
Mhm.
because that's the best measurement. Because if you know exactly what the person's eating, you can then begin to manage the outcomes a bit better, or at least try and change the outcomes. Whereas if you're just following macros, okay, 100 grams of chicken breast versus 100 grams of whey protein, in terms of protein grams, is going to be very different. It's going to have a different effect to different people. Can affect like bloating, digestion, things like that. So yeah, I was just glad to see like people actually thinking logically. Like, but then of course they said, "Oh, but I'm on 2,000 calories at the moment." I'm like, oh, it's all gone downhill. You're on such a high there, but
Yeah.
it's funny. But yeah, the bodybuilders, the bodybuilders that you guys see on stage, the people that know what's going on in terms of like getting in shape because they've done it so many times, they track food intake. Meal 1, chicken, rice. Meal 2,
Yeah.
eggs and I don't know,
Mhm.
porridge or whatever. That's how they track their food intake, because that's the best way to measure it, because they're using the same foods every time.
Yep.
Same cooking methods. They're very methodical. They bulk cook all their food so they can accurately work out what they're doing.
Mhm.
That's why I'm a fan of that versus the other thing. But it might be good for you guys actually to watch the video that I made with a friend, I think about 3 or 4 days ago. Went live and it was debunking the entire industry or something. We talked about calories in, calories out, a little bit about training, loads about the carnivore diet and getting someone onto it. One of his arguments was quite funny. It was, I'm trying to think now. It was funny at the time to me. So what if a person doesn't have time to sort of cook meat and do this? I'm like, well, you have to change your job. If you don't put your health first for the sake of money from a job, okay, we can do that money, I think it's a bit backwards thinking. I think health needs to be prioritized more. So
Yeah.
they can't say they don't have money to afford this stuff anyway, because they're spending, I won't say how much, but they're spending quite a bit of money on coaching each month, so they can afford it.
Mhm.
It is viable having meat and eggs and cheese and whatever fish. It's not the hardest thing to do. I'm off on a tangent.
You're good.
Say hi to
Well,
Nicole.
hi, Nicole. Well, and one thing I tell people too is you're probably going to save money, just in general by eating less anyways. And I need to do a business Facebook post of it, but it's a goal of mine, when I do personal training for people or when I write up diet plans for people, to have them save money. they're going to come out ahead by working with me because they're going to be seeing a trainer less than they previously were, or they're going to be eating less food and eating better food and not throwing food away. I mean, I don't know about you, Jonathan, but I basically have zero food waste. Almost
Mm.
nothing ever goes into the bin. Um, and you compare that to how much, if you eat an apple, how much of an apple goes in? A third would go into the trash with the core. You buy a banana at a certain amount per pound, and a good amount of that weight is the peel that just gets thrown away. So there's zero food waste for a lot of people on the carnivore diet. And the other point I wanted to reinforce that you said is the most successful bodybuilders that I know, they might talk about their diet in terms of how many calories it is. But like you said, they're eating the same foods at the same time every day. And then when they need to, they're skimming portions. They're not completely replacing meals, or they're not doing anything crazy. They're just making that dinner that might be a chicken breast and 2 cups of rice. They're taking it down to a cup and a half of rice. And then they're following that for a few weeks, and then they take another adjustment. Um, Whether they recognize it or not, the reason calories in, calories out works is by reducing calories, most people end up reducing mass.
And hopefully, in most cases, that's carbohydrates or fats. Ideally, carbohydrates, but yeah, very well explained. Excellent, very good. We might answer another question actually. So, Unassailable has asked: is carnivore diet better for mesomorphs or endomorphs? Seems ectomorphs have a difficult time bulking on it. I eat a lot of meat, 3 kilos a day. You can't get above 75 kilos as a tall 6'3" guy.
Hmm.
His food sounds like a lot. I'll be wondering, like, how fatty is the meat? I'm going to be completely honest here. Every time I've met someone on a carnivore diet and they say, I struggle to gain weight, I'm a beanpole and I eat loads of food. Most cases, they don't eat enough fat and they're walking 20, 30,000 steps a day and they're high stress and don't sleep at night. That's in most cases where I've sort of spoken to someone, I've consulted them for an hour and worked it out. Then they report back, in 2 cases that we probably know, they report back, oh, I've got better results now after about a month of doing it properly. But I don't know, we'd need a lot more information. Like I said before, I think you asked me the same question a couple of times before through comments on a video. I don't know. That's my best guess. I'd recommend a consultation. But what do you think, Jerome?
I think the carnivore diet is equally the best diet for ecto, endo, and mesomorphs. And if you're having trouble putting on size, if you're eating 3 kilos of meat a day, training intensity, I would suspect, and I'll admit it's my own speculation, training intensity is probably short of where it needs to be. You have to create the stimulus initially, and then the growth happens in recovery. So, force feeding yourself, either you're not absorbing all of it, or you're just metabolizing it very, very quickly. And either one of those is possible. And to get a clue of which one of those is happening, you probably have to take your bowel movements into consideration. Are you passing a lot of food as well? Um, but yeah, everybody has the potential to build some degree of size and strength, but ultimately that's a genetically mediated trait. And you can only achieve up to the limits of what your genetics will allow. So I would take a really close look at your training. Feel free to reach out to me or Jonathan. Like he said, it's probably far more of a consultation question, so we can get the big picture of everything that's going on. And the more information that you give Jonathan in a coaching client kind of questionnaire form, or if you were to send me an email, the more information you could give either one of us, the better. But really just having 1 or 2 kind of pieces of the puzzle, and for he or I to kind of sit back and try and see the big picture. It's unfortunately we're good at what we do, but we're not that good.
Yeah, like Jerome said, I can only give my best guess. So I'd be irresponsible to say you need to try this out. It based on 75 kilos, eat a lot of meat, and you're 6'3". I don't know. It's a lot of. It is certainly a lot of food. I can say that much. But just in regards to that, I mean, when I was on a omnivore or omnivorous diet before, I'd have perhaps 6.5, 7,000 calories some days,
Hmm.
and my weight would stay the same. but I'd crap like bilio. That time I wasn't absorbing all that food. If I was still gaining mass and I was incrementally increasing my food intake alongside my weight, but my weight wasn't going up, but I was increasing food, I was just wasting food. Obviously, my body stopped dealing with it. So you could be in that position with leaky gut. It's very possible, very likely. If you've been on medications, that would greatly affect it. If you've got a funny work schedule, greatly affect it. If you're 80 years old and you're asking me this question about building muscle at 80 years, that would greatly affect it. So way too much to go into, I think.
Yeah, and
Hopefully we'll give you some ideas.
it's unfortunate. I can't remember the exact video, but Jason Fung, who's a big proponent of fasting, often in his speeches will reference a number of studies showing when people eat a reduced mass diet for a long period of time, their metabolism will slow. And similarly, the antipode of that is true as well. If you're eating in an energy surplus for a long time, yeah, you'll put on a little bit of fat, but your metabolism picks up as well. Metabolic rates will somewhat track concordant with food intake. So it's very possible you're eating a lot of food, but your metabolism has just revved up and you're just burning through a lot of it.
Mm. Yeah, the metabolic rate isn't a standstill thing. So when you see these like calculators online, I think they're accurate if you're the average person, like doing the exact same thing every day, but that's not the truth.
Yeah.
What you've done up to that point will greatly impact the metabolic rate or calorie burn, if it were, that you might be doing each day. So,
And that's another major criticism Jonathan and I have of the energy balance theory is it's very reductionist and myopic, saying that if you're in a calorie deficit, you lose weight. If you're in a calorie surplus, you're going to gain weight. And they just leave it at that when you and I have both worked with enough people and we've seen it within our own physiques that we know how our metabolisms will respond to various amounts of food. And if you're like, I have a client here in my studio that will have some days, she'll have a couple of days a week, she barely eats anything. And then she'll have 2 or 3 days of almost normal eating, and she's having a really hard time losing weight. And it's her body is essentially going like this because it doesn't know. So when I wrote up a diet for her, it's 7 days of normal feeding, and none of this where she's gonna have a couple of days a week of almost nothing at all. Um, yes, your metabolism will slow down if you're not getting enough food. And similarly, it can increase if you're consistently getting a lot of food. Our bodies
yeah,
aren't
certainly.
stupid. I apologize. That was a bit of a tangent.
No, that does make sense, to be fair. I think it's always good to give a bit extra information. I've got a video coming out, I don't know when, let's just say 2 weeks from now. 2 videos. So one will be about priming and one will be about, what was it? Dry fasting.
Hmm.
We talk a lot about metabolism there, and I thought it's quite insightful. I actually think I learned something. So it'd be useful to keep your eyes peeled for those 2 videos. They're with Bart K. So Nicole asked, how do you think training differs between men and women, or women and men? And do you think there should be a difference in training? I'll go first quickly. I think women just have different goals than men, so the training is going to be a bit different for them. I know most women I've seen at the gym, if they're training 3 times a week, they'll have 2 lower body sessions and 1 upper body session. They tend to develop their thighs very well, so that tells me whatever they're doing works, apparently. Just anecdotal. Perhaps they might not do as much chest exercises. They might do more shoulders. They might focus more on triceps, the bingo wing sort of areas. They might try and build muscle there so the area around that feels a bit firmer or appears firmer. But I think the underlying philosophy that Jeremy and I have around training, the same principles apply between men and women. It's just the specificity changes, I think, for a lot of people. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. What do you think?
Yeah, I really don't treat women any different than men here in my studio. Certainly, most men and women generally train different when they go to the gym. And guys like to go and do the Guido pump, chest and arms and shoulders a couple times a week. And a lot of guys tend to eschew legs. And women tend to be a little bit more lower body focused. Should there be a difference? No, I don't think so. And Jonathan and I are both generally firm on the idea of being firm when it comes to principles, not programs, and which he so eloquently enumerated by just saying specificity. Um, Jonathan and I hold to safe, intense, relatively brief and somewhat infrequent training. Generally, don't train on 2 consecutive days. Work as hard as you safely can. Um, Work out with as much intensity as you can, and train the whole body. Um, you're right. I have a lot of women that want to have better, triceps and backs of their arms, but you can't really spot reduce fat. Um, and the idea is you just want to improve the body as a whole and handle the rest through diet. So, I'm non-discriminatory in general between men and women in the gym, and same across ages. My youngest client's 15, my oldest is 87, and I push all of them as hard as I safely can.
That's exactly it. Yeah, it's the same. Sure, that's my dog.
Is that
Someone's at the
George?
door. That's George. It's an Amazon parcel, I can tell.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I purchased your books and stuff. Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, keep your eyes peeled for the next one. When we're ready, we'll release the next one. It'll be even better than the last one and the one before that put together. I keep looking at it and adding more sections. I think the other day I added like 6-7 pages. I was like, I did that out of nowhere, just like topped bits up and add a bit of extra information. I don't know. I need to stop looking at it, I think. Yeah, 12-minute strict carnivore, never scurvy. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
That's good to hear, actually.
Cats are carnivores.
That's right. Yeah, plenty of taurine in their foods, or the fish and that. Thank you for joining as well. Also, Baddest Cat, appreciate you being here. Mike's here as well, so thank you, Mike, for joining.
How you doing, Mike?
Sophie's not going to make it, apparently. I figured that one out about half an hour ago. Yeah. She did text me, bless her.
That's sweet of you to leave a kissy emoji for me, Sophie, but you should probably leave that for Jonathan.
Yeah. You tell her. Here we go. Is that a question? Is that a question we've already done?
Similar. The other question is the carnivore diet better for mesomorphs and endomorphs instead of ectomorphs?
Oh, I see. I think people that are ectomorphs tend to be anxious types that over-exercise, never want to eat enough, are scared of gaining a slight bit of body fat, do too much in the gym, and don't recover properly. So in that case, you might benefit from just adding some, like, I don't know, some raw dairy and something which will stimulate insulin, stimulate your appetite a little bit. That would probably be more effective. I think a lot of people try to be too perfect with the diet, which is what causes a lot of issues. So raw dairy might be a good additional kind of thing. That's just a hunch, but then I'm gonna find out he's allergic to it, like 99% sure. So no matter what I say, I'll be wrong. So what's the point?
I would say for anybody trying to put on quality weight, intensity of training is number one. Because otherwise, any weight that you put on is going to be body fat, and there's certainly people that could stand to have a little bit more fat on them. Some people are painfully thin, in fact. But if you're trying to put on muscle, number one is training intensity. That has to be there. Everything else will eventually fall into place. But if that training stimulus is not intense enough, you're not giving your body a big enough signal that it needs to grow, that it needs to spend resources to accumulate extra tissue. So whatever your training looks like, and I'd be really curious to know, reach out to me, reach out to Jonathan. Can you get it done in like 2 or 3 sets? Can you push your body as hard as you can in whatever muscle groups you're working to get it done in that few sets per workout, so you feel like you're dead after those sets, and like in your soul that you are not capable of doing one more set? And if that answer is a yes, then you start looking at other variables that you can manipulate. But most people, and myself included, I still have workouts sometimes where I think I didn't push hard enough. But that's number one. Intensity is number one.
Agreed. Very good. Yeah, Rick's not had libido regardless of the diet he's followed.
Wait, is he serious?
Too tall. I think he's mentioned this before, maybe about 5 months ago on my channel. Yeah.
I just assumed he was living like a playboy down in Florida, eating iguana and kind of fixing up vehicles and then just slaying on the weekends.
Can you imagine? Yeah. I don't know. I bet he's. Rick, let us know in the chat how many girls you picked up in the last few years.
Yeah,
Or
because
males. I don't really care. Whatever. How many
rumors
people
I've
you picked
heard,
up?
I heard you have testicles like avocados.
Oh my god. We've
I'm
just
trying to
lost
get
like 3 people from the live chat.
yeah
Whoops.
demonetized.
That's it. Oh god. Well, I like this question. So, guys, do you know how the ATP in the mitochondria gets to where it needs to? And if it is made in the mitochondria, does it get absorbed into the cell through the wall of the mitochondria? It goes to the different organelles to perform different functions through the release of energy from phosphate. But Jerome, you're a bit more. You're much better at this kind of biochemical stuff. How would you explain it?
I believe it's enzymatically actively transported out of the mitochondria with ATP transferase. There's a number of enzymes that'll do it, but I believe it uses a little ATP, but I believe it's actively transported. It doesn't diffuse. Actively transported out of the mitochondria, where it essentially floats around in the cytosol and can be utilized by different organelles or used for the ATP phosphocreatine system.
Yeah, it makes sense. It'd be active rather than. What was the other thing you just said?
I said it's enzymatically driven, but I'm pretty sure it's active transport and not past. Like it doesn't diffuse.
That's it. Yes, it wouldn't diffuse because then you just end up losing loads of
Right.
energy. Your body's not going to be very efficient if it's just chucking out energy and it's then got to deal with that and process it through, I don't know, heat or something or whatever. I don't know. Yes. Pretty good question. I like that one.
Yeah, I got to brush up on my biochemistry, but
I've got my book right over there, so I've got no excuse.
There have been some excellent questions today.
Yeah, a lot better than usual. So thank you guys. Appreciate that. It makes it very stimulating. So Lamb's asked, thank you for joining. How does water fit into the mass in, mass out equation? It has mass but no energy? Good question. Yeah, so when they talk about mass, they're talking about things with, I believe, carbon in it. So carbohydrate, protein, fat, I think. But yeah, so things that actually are macronutrients. So really what we should be saying is macronutrients in, mass out. But then it's not very catchy, so it's a bit easy just to say mass in, mass out, I think. But yeah, so water doesn't have any energetic value because of how it's broken down. It doesn't release energy, if that makes sense. Is that correct, Jerome? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I was thinking in the most literal sense, I suppose water of any temperature would have and could release or absorb calories, but that's using the more literal definition of calories. Ironically enough, and to take this one step further, the air that you breathe also, you breathe in oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen in the air, and some of that is integrated into our tissues. But essentially, water in you're not going to excrete the same amount of water that you take in, but that mass is taken into account. And if you look at the equations of Dr. Arabites, I feel really bad for bastardizing his
Francesco
name.
Arabita, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the last name is hyphenated, so I'm forgetting like half of the last name. Actually takes in it takes in respiration and water into his equations for the mass balance model. So when I think of the mass balance model, I think of just track your macros. Now, obviously, the air that we breathe, we're going to be using some of that oxygen, carbon is going to get integrated into our tissues, and anything extra is going to be excreted. But similar with water, some of the water that we drink is going to be utilized, and then that excess is going to be excreted. But it's taken account for in the equations in the mass balance model. And to my knowledge, there are currently 4 papers on the mass balance model. I have them all in a shared Google Drive folder for Jonathan. Yeah. And I could, if you really want to get granular and actually look at the equations, they're pretty complex. I could send some of those your way.
Yeah, I don't really want to read anything right now.
Well, It's getting a
I'm
little late.
too busy for. Yeah, I'm a bit. It's a bit. It's about 8:30 over. I'm a bit. Not another day.
Jonathan's getting a little slap happy here.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yes. Christopher Thompson, great conversation, guys. I've been listening while my multitasking, very informative. Excellent.
Multitasking.
Yes, please.
What's that?
I don't know what. I imagine it's a female, unless it's Christopher as in a he. Yeah.
I can only do one thing at a time.
Yeah, I'm not very good at the one thing I do each time.
Yeah.
Great news.
Depends what
anyway.
the one thing is.
Yeah. Question here. So, hi, I do CrossFit workout. I'm wondering how to go on a carnivore diet as I won't be having any carbs. I heard Joe Rogan said his workouts weren't as good as they used to be until he added fruit. I've not heard him say that, but I've not listened to his stuff, so I couldn't really verify that. You just transition slowly. I mean, the best way to get about that is to, honestly, if you want to be calculated, to track it. So work out your food intake, then from there work out your macros. So protein 200 grams, carbs 200 grams, fat 100 grams, whatever it happens to be. Then all I'd do is over a period of maybe 8 weeks or so, or 4 weeks, maybe 4 to 8 weeks, just change from, so drop 20 grams of carbs, add 10 grams of fat, drop 20 grams of carbs, 10 grams of fat. So just do that week by week by week. And eventually get to the point where you won't really notice that your body's adapting, if that makes sense. So it'll be, people always imagine like to be in a ketogenic state, it's like a switch. It's like just like that. It's a sliding gradient. So the more glucose you put in your body, the lower the ketones will be. The less glucose you put in your body, the higher the ketones will be. So it just levels it out. So rather than just going, you go just slowly. So that's a big mistake people make. If you're very fit, very active, you can deplete glycogen very quickly. You can get your mitochondria working. You know, plenty of, I don't know, AMPK, you know, earthing, grounding. You're pretty fit, then yeah, you could probably do it over 4 weeks with no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But people use the fruit as almost like a supplement because they can't stick to the diet. That's what I've noticed. And fructose, as we have apparently found out, is deleterious to the liver, apparently. And also still activates the Randall cycle, so you're actually more likely to be more inflamed whilst adding fruit in. So it kind of like goes in your body and just sticks around and does some stuff. But it doesn't have any targeted use. Whereas I've spoke to Bart about this. I spoke to Jerome about this, I think, before. I've definitely spoke to Harry Spahn about this, and I was like, my meat, fruit, and honey experiment would have been better if I just did meat and Skittles. I'd have felt so much healthier for it because my body has glycogen stores to deal with the glucose from the Skittles. But the fructose from fruit, not ideal. It's going to go into your blood, and your body has to just work through it and just burn it off, basically. But yeah. Do you have anything much to add to that?
No, I
Would
think
you change
nailed it
workouts at all? Or?
No, like you said, over probably at least no less than 4. I mean, be a badass if you want and go right to carnivore, but especially if you're looking at athletic performance, you need to taper down the carbs slowly. There's a lot of great research by Jeff Volek and Steve Finney with fat adapted cyclists who are on zero carbohydrate diets and have the same degree of glycogen replenishment post workout as carbohydrate based athletes and zero decline in performance. But if you're going from having a moderate amount of carbohydrates to just drastically cutting them, like Rogan has done, the 2 times he's done carnivore, I think he just did it in January 2 different years. And he just went right from what he was doing straight to carnivore for 30 days. Well, if you're making a massive change to your diet, it's reasonable to assume that there's going to be a slight drop in athletic output. It takes time to be fat adapted, and being fat adapted is not the same as being in ketosis. It requires a massive upregulation in a number of enzymes and hormones to really function well in that physiologic state. So I would, yeah, like Jonathan mentioned, over probably at least 6 or 8 weeks, gradually transition into a carnivore diet. And then how long it takes to get fat adapted is going to vary from person to person. But once you're fat adapted, I tend to think athletic performance should be every bit as good, if not better, on a carnivore diet, assuming you're not having regular and frequent deviations from your diet than being carbohydrate based.
Yeah, very good. Yep. Jerome, did you watch me on that 24-hour live thing
No, I
the other
haven't
day?
seen it yet.
Oh, so you can find me. I'm in the second part. I'm in the second part.
I can just hear the disappointment in that.
Oh, I thought you'd be well impressed. That's why I went on it.
You didn't go on there to impress me.
I think I'm about 5 hours before the end, apparently.
Okay, well, I can just
Of
skim
the
through
very end.
until
Yeah,
I see
you'll
your
see me
smiling
because
face.
I've got my green screen. I made it deliberately, just my green screen, so I'm easy to find.
Nice.
Not bad. I spoke about autism for a bit and stuff like
Mm.
that, and anxiety and mental health stuff. I was like, well, everyone's just talking about losing weight and the carnivore diet and get rid of arthritis. I'm like, let's talk about our brains. What actually really does matter here? Go on.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to people. I was like, people weren't really talking much about it. I was like, I don't want to talk at all about building muscle. I just want to talk about mental health stuff. So very good. Very, very pleased with that.
I'll be sure to check that out, and I will share my thoughts with you when I do.
Oh god, it's about 25 minutes long.
That's fine.
It's quite intense. Yeah, I've upsetted the aggravators. I've aggravated his Labradors. Yeah, George is a Labradoodle, guys. He's quite sweet. Yes, right about the live. Yeah, Rick was just after me. Then it was Michael Mason from the UK, so that's quite cool. Question: you know how tall I am and what I weigh and how much food I eat. Would you classify me as an ectomorph? Yes. Yes. If you're going purely by somatotype, like shape, like body form, yeah, I'd probably say you're an ectomorph, a skinnier type of person. Yeah. Would you agree, or do you think he's endo?
No, yes. As far as I can tell, I would say he's an ectomorph.
Rick Rodriguez, the 40-year-old carnivore endomorph.
Don Juan.
You pictured it, yeah. There you go. I must eat duck eggs. Okay, more people just dropped off the stream again.
Those big ducks?
Probably. I've not had duck eggs in ages. The duck eggs over here, Jeremy, are a load of rubbish now. Then they don't taste right. Something's wrong with them. I swear. They're not right. Andrew, got a question. In your experience, do you think that fasting can hurt muscle and strength gains, or is it dependent on how lean or fat one is and how hard and intelligent he or she trains? I think that this is the same kind of thing we've said before about like how much food you eat in a day, like how many meals you have a day. I think the same principle applies. So is your intake enough to support the demand of your muscular activity and strength building phase for your resistance training or not? Does it fuel you or not? And you'll know if it fuels you because you'll begin to make progress, build more muscle, gain more strength. Of course, if you're leaner, the chances of dipping into muscle go up a bit more. I would want to know why someone was fasting if they're already that lean. So when I say lean, I mean like below 10% lean. So like really good visible abs. And I would say, why are you fasting? Is it a health reason or outside of that? I mean, it just comes down to being able to eat enough food to supply your body with what it needs and being able to sleep properly. So if you're fasting, you're finding, okay, I can't sleep when I fast. Well, don't do it because you're neglecting a major part of muscle growth there. So what do you think, Jerome?
Yeah, there's the answer is yes, it can. But there are so many variables that go into that, and how much you're eating, what your current body composition is, how long you're fasting, what type of fasting you're doing, your experience with fasting. It certainly can. You could fast too hard, too long, and it can mess with your workout performance depending on the intensity, volume, and frequency with which you work out. Could it help? Yeah, I think it also could too. Maybe some intermittent fasting or one meal a day. Anthony Chafee talks about how he likes and he's always liked playing rugby on an empty stomach because he felt that little bit of hunger made him a bit more aggressive. So in that regard, at least mentally for what it did for him, it probably helped him, even though physiologically he might have been a little bit better with a slight bit of food in his stomach. Yes, it can help. It's also possible. No, it's not going to hurt. Or no, yes and no is my answer.
Yeah, I think it's a trial and error kind of thing. I don't think there's a default. I think Andre knows kind of by how he's ended this question, like he kind of knows what it comes down to. So yeah, I think you're on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining, James. Appreciate you being here. There we go. So Andy asked, do you recommend aerobic exercise along with resistance training, or would you advocate higher intensity resistance training alone to achieve a positive cardio stimulus? I think if someone can, Jerome knows this a little better than me because he's got experience doing this with people. So Jerome trains people in his studio for about 20 minutes or so, something like that, per week, once per week. And they still get a cardiovascular fitness benefit from the training because the way they do it is in a circuit or a giant set kind of fashion. So they go from one machine to the next, to the next, to the next. And the heart rate remains elevated throughout that because they're training so hard. And I think if you can't apply that intensity to a workout and you're not going anywhere near close to failure, your heart rate's maybe like hovering around 110, 120, you're not going to get as much of a potent aerobic kind of stimulus, cardiovascular stimulus, if that makes sense. So it'd come down to intensity. I mean, you could probably get 90% of the results doing maybe 2 or 3 sessions a week, I reckon. Maybe 80% if you do the one. Then beyond that, you might as well chuck in some walks or something outside. Sprints are also good on a bike. If you've got good knees, you can do that uphill somewhere. But I think the main focus should always be resistance training just because of the metabolic benefit it has on sensitizing the GLUT4 receptors, which allow you to uptake glucose in preferential to fat tissues through a downstream breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
Drew, what do you think? I mean, you can explain this a lot better than I can about fitness and stuff.
Yeah, in general, I tell people do whatever you want to do outside. You know, it's your life. But if you're trying to do physical activity to improve your cardiovascular performance and health, I don't think you need to do dedicated quote unquote cardio. There's really no such thing as cardio anyways. You can't completely isolate, the heart and the lungs through physical activity. Really, when we're talking about cardio, we think of getting our heart rate up, but a lot of the changes that happen that improve our cardiovascular performance, our endurance, that allow us to have a lower heart rate are happening in the peripheral tissues. It's happening in our muscles. Um, when you exercise, and it's tough because any type of physical activity you do, there's a neurological component to it. And the more you do it, the more efficient you'll get at that pathway. And that's often conflated with improvements in cardiovascular performance. But really, if we're talking about cardiovascular health, we're talking for the most part about our muscles' ability to utilize a large amount of substrate when it needs to. And that's going to happen from an upregulation in enzymes. So it's somewhat genetically mediated, but it's also going to be based on the type of activity that we're performing. So if you're just looking to improve cardiovascular health, I think the same benefits can be achieved in far less time with either some type of sprint or really high intensity interval style training, or slow, controlled, safely performed, but extremely intense resistance training. All forms of physical activity, strength training, cardio, all requires muscular contraction. And muscular contraction has a known physiologic pathway. Most of it is glycolytic. We're breaking down glycogen to make ATP. The byproduct of glycolysis is pyruvate, and that pyruvate can only be shuttled into the mitochondria so fast. It's limited by 3 enzymes called the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. It's what brings pyruvate into the mitochondria so it can go through the Krebs cycle to make more ATP. But the enzymes that'll allow us to break down glucose faster, and the upregulation of pyruvate dehydrogenase is going to happen from the intensity of effort with which we're moving. And that doesn't matter if it happens in your resistance training or if it happens through quote unquote more cardio. We're still talking about muscles contracting. And in that regard, we're talking about glycolysis. And then the rest happens downstream from that as a result. So I know that's a bit of a granular explanation.
Well, there we go. It's Carnivore muscle ramblings after all.
Yeah. But do the things that you love to do. But I think Jonathan and I both aren't fans of the more steady state cardio. Jonathan did an excellent video with Bart K talking about a close association between that zone 2 cardio and left ventricular hypertrophy. Long, moderate bouts of cardio consistently performed for large periods of time could potentially have a negative health effect on the physiology of the heart.
Yeah, basically. And I mean, the World Health Organization is recommending, our beloved World Health Organization, sorry, is recommending 150 minutes of, I think, low or moderate intensity exercise each week. What Jerome's basically saying is you can get all that benefit in like 1, maybe 2 sessions.
Yeah,
quite handily, as long as that intensity is still there.
And I have a number of studies referenced on my business Facebook page where I reference these studies that show that, you'll burn the same amount of fat or over the course of a day, or you can reap the same cardiovascular benefits from doing shorter but extremely intense physical activity, whether it's intervals, whether it's strength training, the same benefits can be had either way.
Yeah, nicely said. Yeah, great questions from everyone this week. I agree. Very good. Thank you, everyone that's joined so far. We're just going to wrap this up in about a minute or two. I'll just read this one. So I got used to eating 1 meal a day, but sometimes I feel very hungry late at night, which is not common for me since I've been binge eating mostly meat and eggs. I'm not close to 10% body fat. Thanks again. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're probably not binge eating enough. You might just need to eat more food. Or it might be, if you're like me, you can't really fit enough in your stomach in one hit, so you have to spread it out. So you could be like me. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, if you were to listen to some other people within the high intensity training camp, they would tell you to just eat fewer calories. And I just abhor that particular approach. Yeah, and I hear you. Definitely give some consideration to the mental and emotional repercussions of binge eating. If there's one thing I would like, it would be for people to have the long-term health outcomes that they want to have, but still have a positive association with food. The food you eat, the exercise that you do, the activities that you perform should never be viewed through the lens of punishment. You're doing these things because they're good for you, and it's a celebration of what your body can do. It should all be positive. It should be win, 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 and not punishing yourself for making bad decisions. Your workouts you're doing it because it's good for you and you love doing it. Don't make these things bad. Don't carry negative associations with your diet or your exercise.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the time we're trying to be perfect and track everything and get our macros right and our workouts right. But at the end of the day, Jerome will come out and talk about it at some point soon, I'm sure. But it becomes a stress at one point where you're like, this is a chore. Like, this isn't fun now. It's not pleasant. I've got too much else to worry about. But then your goals might change at one point. You might have different thoughts. So you could change direction. That's the best thing about bodybuilding, is you can always change direction. So there's different categories. If you are a competitor, you can go about it different ways. You can do it natural, tested. I don't know. You can eat a carnivore diet. You could also not eat a carnivore diet. So that's about it, I think. Let me press some buttons on them. Let me press some buttons.
Am I pressing buttons? Or okay. I didn't know if you meant literally or allegorically. That sounds like the victory fanfare from the Final Fantasy games.
I thought it sounded like Adventure Quest when I used to have it on the PC in like 2007 or something. Or Dragon Fable. I love those RPGs. They're sick.
Yeah. You and I need to start a guild in RuneScape.
A guild.
Or whatever.
Whatever it is, yeah.
An alliance, a group, a clan, whatever.
I made Sophie an account before, but I just used it to hack stuff. Yeah. I don't know. My gaming days are over, I think. Yes. Anyway, Jerome, what do you have upcoming on your channel anyway? Before we wrap this up,
I'm going to be doing a video about my poor relationship with food and how I plan to make that better. Because I don't know if it'll ever be fixed, but how I plan to improve upon my existing relationship with food. And I'm also going to be doing a video soon on time static contraction, why I'm such a fan of TSC, physiologically, why I think it can produce the same benefits with making less of an inroad into your recovery ability. But I'm going to get pretty granular on that one. So that one's going to take some work. But aside from that, just yelling at people here in the studio. What have you got coming up?
I've got a few videos, I think. I look forward to that time static contraction one. It should be good. If it loads, I'll be able to tell you. Okay, there we go. So I've got Sam Sulek's diet critique coming up. Some of you may, so the channel members have probably already seen it or had access to it. I've got one on liver crisps where I did a taste test. Got one coming up soon. Actually, this one's in a, yeah, I can say it. Yeah, so one is my 1,318 days on the carnivore diet journey. It's pretty quiet. I quite like that video. I was quite proud of that. I got one about chronic fatigue and a lady I met before. I've got quite a few other secret videos which are underway. But yeah, all stuff that you guys are used to, same sort of stuff about body stuff and stuff that relates to me and stuff like that. Yeah. It's nothing special really. Just hope that YouTube doesn't cut me out anymore. I've lost about 25% of my views over the last week. So yeah, I've been hidden a little bit, so got to be a bit careful.
Well, hopefully talking about Sam, whatever his last name is, we'll bring that up. I know a lot of YouTubers in the fitness community have been talking about him. Young kid, obviously enhanced, but I don't know jack about his diet or his training.
Donuts, cereal boxes, like kid cereal.
Okay.
Gallons of milk. Packets of microwave rice. That's about it, I think. Yeah, it should be good. But those sort of videos always get a lot of dislikes, which is a shame because I analyze it better than anyone else has. I talk about the whole diet, like everything they're doing wrong and why and what's a better option, sort of thing. But I'll get so many dislikes. It's so frustrating. You're like, if you actually listen to what I'm saying, it makes sense, you know? Then I get people say, oh, you need to cite references. I'm like, you can Google what an oxalate is. I don't need to cite reference to explain to you what an oxalate is or what a glycation is. You can Google this yourself. It's terminology. It's not a theory. It's a terminological thing. But yeah, anyway, I'm still going on now. That's it, innit? All right, we're heading off now. Cheers, guys. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everyone.